What's good, everybody?
Yes, welcome to our channel, Dex and Tracy. I'm Patrice.
I'm Dex.
And today we're going to be talking to you about the 6 tips that we have for people in their 20s and how to have a long-lasting relationship. We ourselves have been in a relationship for a little over 4.5 years, so we've accumulated some very good tips and advice that we'd love to share with you if you're interested, if you're in a relationship and you'd like to see how you could be doing better, or maybe just like wanting to watch this together and learn how to be a stronger couple. This video is for you.
And if you have any tips, anything that you learned in your relationships, feel free to comment down below because we're far from a perfect couple ourselves. So without further ado, let's get into it. Number 6. Number 6 is new experiences and adventures. And this is not necessarily traveling, although traveling is always a great thing and fun thing to do with your significant other. It doesn't have to be all that. You can just, go to a new restaurant every other week, every week if you want. You can try a class, something that challenges you. One thing I've noticed, not only in relationships but in friendships, is that having a shared struggle together with someone ultimately creates some kind of bondage and synergy that lasts forever. That's why most of our closest friends we meet in like high school, college, work, prison, because you're all shared struggle together, and that creates memories and something that you can both work on going forward.
Yeah, and it also helps you spice things up. Like, we know that in a relationship, especially when you've been with someone for a while, it can end up feeling like you're in a rut or you're doing the same thing all the time. And if you're experiencing new things, that gives you new things to talk about. As Dex said, new memories, and just in general, keeping things fresh and new.
Number 5. Number 5 is appreciation and gratitude. And I think this all comes down to, giving in a relationship without the expectation of necessarily receiving something back. And I always think about this one thing that Patrice did when we were probably a year into dating or so. She would send me a bunch of letters. She didn't expect me to write back. She even prefaced saying, I'm gonna flood you with a bunch of letters. I don't expect you to write me back or anything. And it was every week a different message, a different note saying that why she appreciated me and different things. It was just really warmed my heart. So little things like that definitely matter in showing your appreciation and your gratitude for somebody.
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that to say, like, showing gratitude is super important, and that all stems back to the manners that your mama told you growing up. Always say thank you. And I feel like we usually say thank you to like family, say thank you to friends, co-workers, because it's like you're part of like workplace culture. But I feel like we usually forget to say thank you to the people who are closest to us, which are like our romantic relationships, people who we love, people who we share the most with. Like, we feel like it's taken for granted that they automatically know that you're thankful for something. So always make sure like the smallest thing that they do, or saying thank you could go a long way, and it just shows them again how much you appreciate them and that they're not being taken for granted.
Thanks for sharing. And thanks for watching.
So, number 4. So number 4, friends first, lovers second. And I personally wanted this one on the list because I feel like being friends is a great foundation for your relationship. Like, think of your best friend, think of the girl code, the guy code, things that you would do, wouldn't do. I feel like when you have that foundation, you know them outside of being a romantic partner. You know them in terms of like outside of what they give you romantically, but you know their interests. You want to make sure you're feeding them in a different light, and you're always building from that and always feeling like you need to cater to that in a certain way and maintain that relationship outside of just like what you want, but also what they want, because that's what a friendship is, right? Being platonic is a completely different realm than being romantic, and yes, both can exist at the same time, because that's what I'm proposing. But when you are platonic, it like gives you a whole new perspective into who that person is and wanting to maintain a relationship outside of being lovers or being a romantic kind of relationship in general.
Come on.
Yes,
I mean, come on.
And I have to say, like, that me and Dex are definitely like really good friends. Even like, not saying God forbid anything happens, but I would still want to know Dex and know what was going on with him and everything post if we weren't together anymore. Like, that's how strong the bond is, and I feel like having that bond to begin with makes us less so want to be with each other another, because it's a relationship on a whole different level. So number 3. So number 3, trust and communication. So I definitely think that when you are building trust, it's not just about what you say. You can't just tell someone, oh, trust me, because what really speaks to them is your actions and what you do. If you're building a relationship, you don't want to like say one thing and do something else. You want to make sure like everything that you do communicates that to your partner, because body language and all of that is just as important. Another thing about trust and communication specifically, is that when you're communicating with someone, you want to make sure, especially if it's like giving any feedback or kind of like wanting to discuss an issue in your relationship, that you're outwardly saying that and you're outwardly expressing that and not holding it within. We've all been there where you say something that you don't really mean, or that you don't really mean to communicate in that way, but because you waited to that certain point, it's gotten too far gone, and there's no way to take those back. So make sure that when you're communicating, yes, communicate effectively, but make sure when you're doing that, you're not lashing out or doing so in a negative way that affects your partner.
I agree, and to add on to that trust with your communication, it comes through time, but not only just through time, it needs to be consistent. You know, one bad act can really screw up the trust in an entire relationship, even if you built all the way to one point. So saying you can trust me, you can do this, whatever, that's one thing, but you really need to show it through your actions, as Patrice said.
Yes, and trust is something that's earned. So if at any point in your relationship, we know that not every relationship is perfect, things happen, you know, life happens, make sure you're putting in that work to regain it, because trust is something that is not a right, it's a privilege, and especially if you're the one to break that, make sure you understand that with your partner.
And I know there was some instances in our relationship. Patrice, you wanna take over here?
Well, it's not what you guys are thinking. I've never cheated on that.
No.
But yes, I could do way better with communicating. I don't want to put it a lot on my upbringing, but I feel like it does have a lot to do with that. I've gotten accustomed to keeping things to myself and kind of push it down and act like it doesn't matter, but in the long run, that doesn't benefit me, it doesn't benefit Dex.
And it's completely natural. I mean, and a lot of that is my responsibility as well, because I'll notice that something's bothering her, but in my mind I'm like, well, she's not going to tell me, so I'm going to just pretend like everything's okay. So, and just probing, saying what's wrong, that's not really the most effective way of getting something out of your significant other, because most of the time if something's troubling them, they probably don't want to talk about it, or if they do want to talk about it, they're going to just lash out at you. So you need to know your partner, know what ways they make them respond, and you got to eventually help them help you get to that point, because otherwise it's just going to keep festering and building up, and y'all going to act like nothing's wrong, and eventually one day it's going to come back and bite you.
For sure.
Moving on to number
2. So number 2, don't compare yourself to others. And this goes for social media, in real life, all of that. I feel like when you're in a relationship, you can get so caught up with comparing yourself. And it's just like when you're in a relationship, you kind of become this entity that people associate with each other, and it could kind of be like you yourself is going on Instagram or going on Twitter and comparing yourself to like different body types or different things that people are doing or their successes. It's the same thing with a relationship, and I feel like same way you get bogged down and same way you get bummed, I feel like you could do that with your relationship. You're sitting there with your significant other like, hey, look at what Bob and Sally are doing. I wish we were doing that too. Why don't you ever do this for me? I mean, it's nice. It could be good to like start a conversation, but maybe not a direct comparison. Think of it in the perspective of yourself. Like, if you're comparing yourself, what does that mean for you and what you really want in your relationship, and kind of bring that conversation to a different realm that doesn't involve other people. Because comparison just leads to like disappointment. It leads to you having unrealistic expectations. I mean, I guess we all want to be #couples goals. You shouldn't be worrying about what other people are thinking about your relationship.
I agree. And I don't want to steal your thunder or anything, but kind of to that point, the grass is always going to seem greener on the other side. You know, single people will always talk about how much fun they're having every night or whatever. They always have these crazy stories. And if you're single, you look at coupled up people and like, man, why can't I find a boo? Where my Mr. Right at? You know, everyone always got their problems. People are gonna front and act like they all have it together. It's just not true. And before we get to number 1, please make sure to subscribe to our channel. Like I said, leave a comment down below on other tips and relationship advice that you have for us. If you think we're awful, I want to know. Please help me get better.
In the nicest way.
Yeah. Be cool, but just be cool.
Be respectful.
Yeah.
Before we get to number 1, definitely want you to take a moment, reel it all in, and kind of like just marinate. Just marinate.
Give me a vinyasa here, whatever that means.
Long time.
And number 1.
Number 1, independence. INDEPENDENT. Do you know what that means? Hey!
You got our own. Boozy said it best. Independence is all about growing your own way, making your own friends, and not being so dependent on your significant other to do basically everything in life. It's okay to be different. It's okay to spend time apart from one another. If you're doing something that you enjoy, it doesn't always have to be with that person. Because once you are able to be sure of yourself and confident with who you are as a person, independent of your significant other, then all of a sudden you just have so much more to offer in a relationship and more to bring to the table.
Definitely. And I feel as though when you're less dependent on people, like if you're coming home, you have stories to tell, you have like your own life going on, and you should be able to take responsibility of your life and responsibility for your happiness. So we totally get it. Like, we've all been there where you're infatuated with the person, you want to spend as much time with them as possible, like you're in that honeymoon phase. I mean, we went through that, and like we still have bouts where we're like, oh my gosh, all I want to do is spend time with you today. But at the same time, you have to make sure you're managing your own personal growth and maintaining something that's healthy and that has balance, because at the end of the day, like, that's what's best for you, and you have to make sure that you're managing what your personal life is, because God forbid if they were to like not be there the next day, you're still here and you're still a person and you still have goals, and you need to make sure that you're managing that and fulfilling your life as much as possible outside of your relationship.
Good job, P.
Thanks. If you're in a relationship or you're looking to be in a relationship that's long term, we feel like we have something to offer here, and let us know again, like, if you're in disagreement or if you've had different experiences, or if you agree and you have like other stories that you'd love to share. We'd love to hear from you and see like how you're feeling about this, and hopefully this helps you in your journey to long lasting love, because that's what we have. Yes, I'm a very lucky person.
I can't take it anymore. Isn't she the greatest? Isn't she just so great? Look at her.
I try.
Look at her. Wow. Can't believe it.
Okay.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Until next time.
Until next time. Bye. Thanks for watching.
Peace.